The courtroom was silent, a heavy kind of silence that weighed down on the polished oak benches and marble walls like a thick, unseen fog. The usual hum of whispered conversations, shuffling papers, and impatient sighs was absent, as if even the building itself was holding its breath. Every gaze turned toward the entrance, where a woman stepped through with the kind of calm certainty that could not be faked. Her name was Jasmine Holloway, and she wore an impeccably tailored navy suit that fit her like armor. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her face composed into an unreadable mask. In her left hand, she carried a leather briefcase worn at the edges, and in her right, a small, official badge that gleamed under the courthouse lights. She was no stranger to rooms like this, rooms where assumptions often spoke louder than words, where centuries of systemic distrust clung to the walls more stubbornly than dust. Jasmine had grown up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where strength wasn't taught in schools or written into textbooks. It was whispered from mother to daughter over kitchen tables, learned on cracked sidewalks under the weight of watchful eyes. Her mother, a nurse who pulled double shifts, and her absent father, whose memory lived only in faded photographs and cautious stories, taught her resilience. By 15, Jasmine had memorized unwritten survival rules. Stay composed, stay visible but non-threatening, always have your credentials ready. Those lessons carried her to the FBI not through favoritism, but through the kind of relentless discipline and excellence that could not be denied, even by those who tried. She had spent a lifetime earning her place in spaces that were not designed for her arrival. But none of that mattered to the man standing in front of her now. At the courthouse security checkpoint, a uniformed officer blocked her path. His name tag read Officer Martin Keller. He was a white man in his early 50s, with a mustache tinged gray and a stance that spoke of decades of entitlement. His eyes narrowed the moment he saw Jasmine. Without even a glance at the credentials she presented, Keller sneered. "That badge looks fake," he growled. His voice was loud enough for the crowd to hear. He didn't ask questions. He didn't verify. He assumed. Before Jasmine could utter a word, Keller seized her wrist roughly, twisting her arm behind her back. Gasps rippled through the room as the sharp click of handcuffs echoed off the marble walls. "You don't belong here," he spat. The judge looked up from his bench. Lawyers froze mid-sentence. Reporters lowered their pens. No one moved to intervene. Jasmine's cheek pressed against the cold wood of the security station as humiliation, hotter than any flame, seared through her. But what Keller didn't know, what he couldn't have guessed, was that in just 7 minutes, the entire trajectory of his life would change forever. Inside Jasmine's briefcase, now discarded on the floor, lay a USB drive small, unremarkable, containing irrefutable evidence of widespread corruption within the city's police department. Names, dates, voice recordings, body cam footage. And Martin Keller's name was among them. In a sterile detention room, Jasmine sat motionless. Her wrists bore angry red marks from cuffs. A younger officer, barely out of academy training, approached with a bottle of water and an apology mumbled so quietly it barely crossed the room. Jasmine said nothing. Sympathy would not undo what had been done. Outside, the courthouse buzzed. Someone had captured the incident on their phone. Snippets of the arrest circulated online within minutes. Photos of Keller manhandling a black woman in a suit flooded social media, igniting a storm that no PR department could contain. Back in the courtroom, the session had been delayed. The presiding judge, an older man with deep creases etched into his forehead, had seen enough. Everyone in the building knew exactly why the schedule had shifted. Jasmine Holloway, the federal agent summoned to testify, had been publicly humiliated by the very system she had come to expose. Still, Jasmine returned. Her wrists still raw, her spirit unbowed. She re-entered courtroom 4B. Every head turned. Phones lifted discreetly to capture her steady walk to the witness stand. The court reporter's fingers hesitated above the keys, sensing history in the making. Jasmine took her oath and sat. Her voice, when she spoke, sliced through the tension like a scalpel. For the past 7 months, she began, I have been leading an undercover investigation into coordinated misconduct within the St. Louis Police Department. She produced the USB drive, handing it to the bailiff, who inserted it into the courtroom's projection system. The screen flickered to life. The first recording was unmistakable. Martin Keller's voice, gruff and commanding, instructing a subordinate to falsify charges against a black teenager who had been arrested without cause. In the audience, a woman, the teen's mother, wept silently, clutching the edge of her seat. Jasmine continued, methodically laying out evidence. 12 separate recordings, each one documenting illegal detentions, falsified evidence, threats against citizens, and racial profiling. Each clip was a nail hammered into the coffin of a decaying institution. Keller shifted in his seat, his face pale, his lawyer whispering frantically in his ear. When asked if she could identify the officer who had attempted to intimidate her during an incident 3 weeks prior, Jasmine didn't hesitate. Officer Martin Keller, she said clearly. The judge nodded grimly. The same officer involved in this morning's incident. Yes, Your Honor, Jasmine confirmed. That is why I respectfully request that the remainder of my testimony be delivered under federal privilege. I believe my safety is at risk. The judge agreed. The balance of power in the courtroom shifted perceptibly. Keller was no longer an authority figure. He was evidence. He was Exhibit A. The next day, the courtroom was packed to bursting. News vans lined the street outside. National media picked up the story, framing it not just as a local incident, but as a symbol of broader systemic rot. Jasmine entered wearing the same suit, carrying the same briefcase, but she moved differently now. She was no longer fighting to be heard. She was here to finish what she started. As Keller sat fidgeting, chewing gum nervously, Jasmine approached the stand again. Your Honor, she began, I have filed an emergency motion authorized by my FBI supervisor. It includes the declassification of new evidence and a request for immediate disciplinary action against Officer Martin Keller. She handed over a second USB drive, marked with a strip of red tape. On screen, a new audio recording played, a confidential informant describing how Keller had instructed officers to plant evidence, intimidate witnesses, and tamper with internal investigations. When the informant described Keller boasting, I'm untouchable. I have the whole damn system in my pocket, the courtroom recoiled. Is this your voice, Officer Keller? Jasmine asked coolly. The judge allowed her to proceed. The final piece of evidence was a grainy but damning video. Keller, under the cover of night, slipping a falsified report into an evidence locker. His face clear, his actions unmistakable. Your Honor, Jasmine said, we request the immediate detention of Officer Martin Keller for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to interfere with a federal investigation. The judge did not hesitate. Officer Keller, he said sternly, you are hereby placed under arrest. The cuffs snapped shut on Keller's wrists, an echo of the indignity he had inflicted on Jasmine just 24 hours earlier. You believe her over me? Keller sputtered, incredulous. But the courtroom remained silent. No one spoke in his defense. Jasmine leaned in just close enough for him to hear. You didn't think I'd get the last word, did you? The investigation didn't end with Keller's arrest. Jasmine, alongside her steadfast attorney, Rachel Miles, and a reformed whistleblower officer named Daniel Ortiz, uncovered a far-reaching network of corruption that extended beyond the St. Louis Police Department into neighboring jurisdictions. They reopened the suspicious death of a young officer, a death long ruled as suicide, and found evidence suggesting murder, linked directly to the conspiracy they were dismantling. The fallout was swift and far-reaching. Indictments rolled out. Officers resigned. Some faced prosecution. Whistleblower protections were strengthened. New training protocols were implemented. Rachel Miles became a force to be reckoned with in the courtroom. Daniel Ortiz, once silenced by fear, became a public advocate for systemic reform. Jasmine Holloway was promoted to Senior Supervisory Special Agent. She rewrote policies, led national training seminars, and mentored a new generation of agents who looked at her and saw possibility where once they had seen only barriers. But Jasmine never forgot the scars. One quiet afternoon, sitting on the worn front porch of her mother's house in Baton Rouge, Jasmine touched an old photo of her father, a man she barely remembered, but who had, somehow, passed on the seed of resilience that bloomed in her now. Her mother, tears glistening in her eyes, whispered, "He would be proud of you." Jasmine didn't answer. Instead, for the first time in years, she simply breathed. A long, slow, cleansing breath. Justice, she had learned, doesn't come with applause or medals. It comes with long nights, unseen battles, and the stubborn, unwavering belief that one voice raised at the right time, in the right way, could change the course of history. This was not just Jasmine Holloway's story. It was a call to action. Because sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply refuse to be silent. And sometimes that refusal is enough to change everything.